Well, today we're going to talk about leadership. We're in our second week in the book of Titus, and we want to talk about leadership. And the reason we want to talk about leadership is that leadership matters. And the reason leadership matters is because people matter. I remember hearing this quote on leadership. It says, "The church rises or falls based upon its leadership." And I thought, that's actually pretty accurate, but I think it's even bigger than that. I think that marriages rise or falls based upon their leadership. I think raising children rises or falls based upon the leadership. I think companies rise or fall. I think businesses rise or fall. School systems rise or fall. That leadership is a really big deal. And so we shouldn't be surprised that it's a big deal to God because he cares about people so much. So I want to share with you three areas of leadership that we want to lead well. And I want to encourage you that God's going to help us lead these three areas well. Now, here's the first area. The first area is to lead your family well. To lead your family well. And I want to look at Titus chapter 1, verse 6. He must be faithful to his wife, and his children must be believers who don't have a reputation for being wild or rebellious. You see, when God talks about leadership, often he talks about the family. And I know some of you think you're not a leader, but really here's my observation, that everybody leads somebody. And in this section, the Apostle Paul's talking about us leading our families well. And in order to lead your family well, you've got to get in the game. You've got to get involved. As a matter of fact, all the way back in the book of Deuteronomy, God told the people, he's told them, first of all, I want you to love me with all of your heart and all of your soul and all of your mind. But then he says, and then I want you to teach your children to love me. So let's look at Deuteronomy 6:7. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road and when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Well, what is God talking about here? I call these teachable moments. A teachable moment is when you teach your kids about God. And so God says, take advantage of these teachable moments when you're going to school, when you're going to the ball game, when you're taking your kid to music practice. But it's not just teachable moments. They're also repeatable moments, because God says, do this again and again. Repeat them again and again. And so the first area we want to lead well is with our own family. And as parents, we want to lead our kids in their relationship to God. We want to help them grow in their walk with God. And that means, parents, we need to accept our role as pastors to our kids. That you're the pastor to your kids. And so what you want to do is use teachable moments and repeatable moments. And one other thing, and maybe the most important thing, that you want to model for your child what you want to see happen in their lives. And to me, that's a golden rule of parenting. Model for your child by letting them see what you want them to become by them watching your lives. Now, the second area we want to lead well in is we want to lead yourself well. As a matter of fact, let me ask you a question. Who is the hardest person for you to lead? I mean, think about that for a minute. Is it that kind of stubborn person that just doesn't want to follow your leadership? Is it that lazy person that's just not that motivated? Is it that person that just really doesn't care? They're kind of apathetic. Well, let me tell you the answer that I think who's the most difficult person to lead, and I think that's yourself. I think leading ourselves actually is the most difficult person to lead. And so let's look what Paul says to Titus in Titus 1, verses 7 and 8. He must live a blameless life. He must not be arrogant or quick-tempered. He must not be a heavy drinker, violent or dishonest with money. He must love what is good. He must live wisely and be just. He must live a devout and disciplined life. So what Paul does here, and this is important, what Paul does here is he really talks about character. I mean, what God's really looking for in your life is character, because with God, character counts. Now, if you look in our culture, if you look in our society, it doesn't always look like character matters that much in leadership. I mean, having charisma, using power, exerting influence, those things seem to matter. But in God's kingdom, what really matters, the foundation of all leadership, is character. And Paul lists a bunch of character traits here. And he does the same thing when he's writing to the young pastor Timothy. And so here's what I want to encourage you to do well. If you want to lead well, then God's going to work on your character. Now, you might be like me. You might be saying, well, man, I really want to have character that counts with God, but I don't always know how to do this. Well, Jesus helps us out because in John 15:5, he says, yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. So here's what's really important. Jesus says, if you want to really build character in your life and become the leader I want you to be, you can't do it on your own. You can't do this without me. So what Jesus said is the more you remain in me, the more you hang out with me, the more you spend time with me in worship, in small group, using Pursue God resources, the more I work my character in your life and out of your life. So if you want to learn to lead yourself well, that all begins by being connected with Jesus. Now, the third area we're to lead well is to lead your neighbors well. Paul is very specific about this. In Titus 1:8, listen to what he says. He must enjoy having guests in his home. You know what Paul's talking about? He's talking about hospitality. That God's people are to be the most hospitable people in their neighborhoods, in their dorms, in their condos, in their townhouses, in their apartment complexes, that we're to be hospitable people. And to be hospitable people means to love and care for people the way Jesus would, to treat people as guests in our neighborhood. You know, here's my encouragement to you. I want to encourage you to get to know your neighbors, to get to know their names, to go over to their house, to invite them over to your house, to have parties at your house, to make your house the place where all the kids want to hang out. And here's why. Because the scripture says you and I are to be salt and light. The scripture also says we're to be a fragrant aroma. We're to be the place where people find Jesus attractive because we are so hospitable to people. And so I really want to encourage you in that. See, if you lead your neighbors well, and if you lead yourself well, and if you lead your family well, you're going to have what we call a full circle life. And a full circle life is this, that one, I put my trust in Jesus, and because I put my trust in Jesus, I now want to honor him with my life. And so the way to honor him with your life is to lead these areas of your life well. And when you lead these areas of your life really well, then you go to the third principle of foundations, which is to help others. And here's how you help others. Listen to what Paul says to Titus. Titus 1:9. He must have a strong belief in the trustworthy message he was taught. Then he'll be able to encourage others with wholesome teaching and show those who oppose it where they are wrong. See, here's a full circle life. In the end, it's helping others. And how do you help them? You help them pursue God as you've pursued God. You help them because you have so trusted in the gospel of Jesus Christ. This gospel that not only saves you, but transforms you. And so you want to share that with those people around you. And so you help them pursue God. And you help them learn to live a full circle life just as you do. You see, leadership matters to God. And because leadership matters to God, it should matter to us. So I just want to encourage you, with God's help, learn to lead your family well, learn to lead yourself well, and learn to lead your neighbors well. Because if we will do that, then God can help us and those around us live a full circle life in Jesus Christ.